I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to make a video like this. I've always thought top 5 end of year videos were played out, but here I am, a horse to the algorithm's stream. We're gonna have to learn how to be good YouTubers together. Bear with me, viewers. 2025 has been, all things considered, a tumultuous year. And I'm not talking about the stuck in Trump land watching subtlety decaying of it all. I'm talking about something deeper, something primal, maybe even ontological. For me, it has been the year of the suburbs, of the cold that left and took pieces of us with it. It has been the year of pixels and silent drives on the I-75, of the devil in the Bible Belt, the gollywog, the trees going green, the trees going red, the trees going, and the days getting shorter, the breath visible in front of us. 2025 has been the year of 2024 and of 2023 and of every year since the apocalyptic turn of the decade, and before, and before, and before, and chipped nails, men in suits jerking imaginary penises, trips to the beach, watching the waves at night, trek, finding the answers, losing them come morning, back pains, morning breath, jollof rice, silhouettes, happy new year, happy birthday, merry Christmas. 2025 has been anything and everything except the one thing it perhaps should have been. It should have been the year of Miley Cyrus. Do you guys remember Flowers? Remember how big that song was? Simply inescapable. And yet, when was the last time you played it? When was the last time you even thought about it? That entire album she dropped in 2023 was, to me, the last gasp of someone seemingly determined to defenestrate their gargantuan talent. Something Beautiful, on the other hand, is the album of someone who, as Cyrus put it, is aching to become real. That's why it's my number 5 pick. The instrumentals are marvelously ornate. They glisten like golden confetti, but are rich as snowflakes as they rain down onto you. And whether she's going rock with Easy Lover or pop like an End of the World, Cyrus sings her heart out, and for once, her words threaten to be worthy of the voice singing them. Hell, the Prelude has almost no singing at all. It's just purely spoken word. She's serious about her pen on Something Beautiful, and it is entirely to her benefit. As you listen, you begin to wish her entire discography was this artful. So I'll say my goodbyes to the earthly delights, while my perfect Eden goes down in flames, she sings. I'm eaten alive by the mouth of the monster, while fearlessly calling out your name. That song, I believe, is about an orgasm, but still, Down in Flames is an understatement, or maybe even an overstatement. For reasons that still manage to elude me, this album bombed worse than Hiroshima. Relatively speaking, nobody listened to this shit. But Jesus Christ, as it tumbled down towards you, sonically incandescent, bejeweled, all-encompassing, tell me it wasn't beautiful. Much better. Did any of you guys watch Lucifer? It's technically part of the Arrowverse and is honestly one of the better works in that continuity. It's no Legends of Tomorrow, but thankfully no Batwoman either. This doesn't matter. I bring it up because that was the show that first introduced me to Dyan via their 2016 song Looking for Knives. I was obsessed with this song. I would put it on at night while driving through downtown Atlanta. I'd loop it and sleep to it. I'd play it in the shower. I'd stare up at the sky to it while on walks. It just eats, for lack of better terminology. Sonically and lyrically, it perfectly depicts a very specific kind of wistfulness, that nigh unnameable longing that exists in all humans, the hand still outstretched to another despite our best efforts to ruin ourselves, trying to fill a rapacious hole with the only thing it can't turn to darkness, light. That song dropped in 2016. 9 years worth of EPs and stray singles later, they came back with their second album, Midwest. As of the time of writing this, I'm planning an 8-hour road trip to the Midwest. I haven't driven this long in my life, but I figured there are fewer ways to get my fill of this great nation. For my review of Midwest, the album, not the place, although maybe this could also work as a prospective review of the place, I wrote, "It is the wrong side of midnight. My eyes are glued to the window. Midwest is playing, and it occurs to me that there is an unknowable yoke in this life that can only be cracked free by travel, by compulsive, spontaneous movement. The album knows you will likely never find it. The album beckons you to leave anyway." Despite how gentle the album is, there is a strange kineticism to it. one that inspires me to act, low-key more than other more conventionally motivational albums. Maybe it's the writing, but this record makes me want to observe the world as it shrinks in my rearview mirror and tell stories about it. As she says on What Fiction Is For, this album's closest thing to a straight-up rock anthem, I get bigger when there's something to run from. I want to see it up against my shape. It's only stories, so don't act like you're afraid. And changing endings is what fiction's for. When I first moved to Atlanta, I spent months skulking through its labyrinthine, rat-infested streets like a Gotham City crook, waiting for Batman, or in my case, despair to descend upon me and knock my lights out. And then I did the impossible. I interacted with other human beings of my own volition. And then I spent the next 3 years discovering new ways to be called gay. But grad school is a current flowing elsewhere. Curiosity makes nomads of scared men, and so goodbyes are in order. Seeds of the fatal illness that is nostalgia have already begun sprouting. It becomes hard then to not try to force air into that which is dying. McKinley Dixon's Magic Alive, aside from having one of the best titles of any work of art I've ever encountered, is an album about a young man trying to bring back his dead friend through the use of magic. The narrative is told in a rich, complex, non-linear manner, and the jazzy, kinetic production is rapturous. And I need not even say it's the writing that has me in a chokehold. I, unlike the narrator for Magic Alive, am not, nor have I ever been in the process of grieving a friend. I'll still be able to call them, still be able to visit. Leaving does not necessitate that something must die. I don't want to make it seem like my predicament is as cataclysmic as Dixon's, but when he says I've been splitting through seasons and fell in love with exactly what's going to keep him caged, it resonates with me. Because much like life itself, Magic Alive is not just about death, it's about change. It's about how tiresome it is to always be in the process of becoming something else. It's about if knowing we must always be in motion, wondering if maybe we could move back. McKinley Dixon says, I'd kill myself to bring you back. How's that, Magic Alive? And it's heartrending. But he also says, Horizon gave reason to live, more time seeing it spent. Because of course, we can't reverse the current. And maybe the only way to stop your soul from being eroded, torn apart piece by piece, is to stop digging your feet into the riverbed and let the waters take you. Maybe that's what it means to be alive. Maybe that's the price for being alive. Motion. Change. In the summer of 2024 and again in the summer of 2025, I obtained and quit anywhere between 4 and 73 different jobs in the span of 3 months. I worked as a valet driver, a sales associate, another valet driver, a receptionist, an accountant, a security guard, a mechanic, a sound engineer, a barber, a poet, a badminton coach, a journalist, a social media intern, an Olympic track runner, a barista, the president of Colombia, a content creator, Batman, a janitor, an investment banker, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I spend my summers afraid of, as Noah Kahan called it, the space. My writing teachers tell me I should be more direct in my prose, so I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm bored. Most of the jobs I got, and most of the jobs I thought about getting, ended in my resignation. I told my friends it's because I'm lazy, and that is probably true. I'm luckier than most, and I'm not always a good enough man to not take advantage of that. But permit me, I think it's something more than that. I'm so easily filled with ennui. When I worked as a valet, I'd stand outside in the heat during my shift, waiting for someone to toss me a key, and I'd just stare at the sky. And I'd be filled with this restlessness, this dread. So what? I just park cars over and over and over and over and over. For how long? To what end? I so easily, taken from the words of my second best album of 2025, fall in love with a fear I believe in. Black Country New Road had an unimaginable hill to climb with this album. They had lost their legendary frontman Isaac Woods, a man whose galvanizing vocals and stunned lyricism could convince you that a broken heart is the equivalent of at least 7 9/11s. Forever How Long, the group's first studio release post Woods' departure, doesn't really try to walk in his footsteps as much as they head in a different direction altogether. With this I mean, the album isn't about a broken heart, even when it's narrating people in great pain. It's more about heavy hearts. In my review, I said, if the very concept of staring achingly out a window was turned into a musical, this would be its soundtrack. The album is twee, full of whimsy and wistfulness. There's no end of the world here. Let's take the title track for example. In it, the night simply curtains. It's a song about that chronic boredom I was talking about earlier. A song about people longing for something else, for some kind of meaning to color in this grey monotony, to make the simple act of waking up every day and being present feel as if by some miracle worth it. In the words of May Kershaw, my favorite member of the band, everything fades. What will remain? Where's the way? Where's the way? I hope, if anything, asking is the first step. I might not be the best rider or fighter, she sings, but I think I'd like to be a little lighter. Much better. Alright, the honorable mentions. Before we continue, let us engage in the gross display of overindulgence the people refer to as honorable mentions. We'll make this quick, one sentence each. I know why we're here. Gollywog, mercilessly horrifying, arguably a better album than my number 5 and number 4 pick, just on sheer poetry alone. The Pilot. I saw someone on Album of the Year say that this was a Prelude mixtape for something bigger. Jesus Christ, Mavi. Cruel joke. Some of the most soul-breaking lyrics I've heard all year, all decade maybe. Get that devil out of the Bible Belt. Alright, let's just be honest with each other. My album of the year is Live, Laugh, Love by Earl Sweatshirt. Come on. By the time this comes out, I'll either be about to get my bachelor's degree or will have gotten my bachelor's degree. I graduated college. Tosin Balogun. Me. What an odd turn of events. I lived almost 2 decades in Nigeria. It's still somewhat unnatural for me that roughly every November, the sun will flee from the sky and said sky will grow cold and indifferent. My blood was brewed for the sun to soak in, and so when there is no sun, when the black winds burrow into my bones, I find that my usual state of melancholy shifts precariously into despair. I know when that shift is coming based on how I drive to school in the mornings. Usually I'll put on and hum to something chill or folky like early Bob Dylan or Navy Blue. Maybe I'll even roll the windows down. The cool morning wind will rush in the car and I'll find peace in the noise. In November, the windows are wound shut. The car speakers are dead silent. My lips are sealed and my mind is cacophonous. Melancholy is quiet in the noise. Despair is noise in the quiet. And because winter is the only season that happens twice in the year, it becomes hard to not see 2025 as a year sandwiched by gloom. Live, Laugh, Love came out towards the end of the summer, just as the trees were starting to die, just as the cold was getting ready to come roaring in from the north, as the sun was eyeing its bed behind the clouds. I see it as a reminder, or maybe a call to action, just before the world loses its mind. When I hear Mandel on the opening track calling me out for wanting to chase instead of find, I am reminded that the numbness that comes with the winter is a lie. We don't run from mere numbness or boredom or silence. We run from ourselves. Whenever any of my friends hear me talk about the album, they always assume the title, Live, Laugh, Love, is ironic. They assume that the guy who was running around with Tyler the Creator on Adult Swim is above naming his album after the white woman Pledge of Allegiance. I always have to resist a smile when I explain to them that there's nothing ironic about the album's title. Earl, with this record, is letting go of that postmodern cynicism we saw him wield with a vice grip on I don't like shit, I don't go outside. Perhaps it's not intellect and modern sensibilities that make us turn up our noses at phrases like live, laugh, love. Perhaps it's cowardice. I could go into Earl's writing here or production here. I could just tell you about the hope stitched into the music's fabric. Or maybe I could talk about how timeless it feels, how it is the kind of music my grandchildren will wake up to. But instead, I'm going to break the rules my writing teacher laid out for me. As we learned from McKinley Dixon, some emotions don't translate as well in a linear manner. 2025 has been, all things considered, a tumultuous year. And I'm not just talking about the stuck in Trump land, watching subtlety decaying of it all, though let's be honest, that is a significant factor behind it all. 2025 has been the year of cold despair. It has been the year of 8-hour drives to the Midwest. It has been the year of falling out of love, or falling in love. The year of being called an 82-year-old man by Spotify Wrapped. The year of the pilot. The year of dogs dying from loneliness. The year of listening to 153,000 minutes of music. The year of seeing snow for the first time. Ice simply falling from the sky like the crystallized rendering of wonder itself. Sitting in a dark car with a friend you've known since kindergarten. It has been the year I graduated from uni. Me, who was worried he wouldn't pass the 4th grade, who was told by his calculus professor to definitely withdraw, who listened to Riot by Earl Sweatshirt for a week straight and awoke to a miracle. If I could go back in time, if I could just catch a glimpse of that boy as he gazed upon his future and found it uninspiring, as he wondered if this was what his so-called precious life was comprised of, I'd first tell him to stop listening to NF, but then look him in the eye for as long as his fearful self would let me, and if I could be so bold, maybe I'd repeat Earl's final message on Live, Laugh, Love. I'd say, more power to you, but it's no flowers in your vase. No amount of sugar gonna help with the taste. At the end of the
day, it's really just you and whatever you think. I'm airmailing you strength. That's all I got for y'all, Los Angeles. Peace. We out this bitch. I love y'all. Be safe. Take care of each other. And make some noise for the whole year to mean. Hold on. For the LL's up experience. All type of niggas over here. We got old niggas, young people, different races, all creeds, colors, hairstyles. Oh, they leaving. They don't care. They so mad we so diverse. They hate that one. Niggas hate diversity now. I get it. I get it. Let's go home.